What's up, guys? This is Rob from Dubseed.com. We are a marketplace for stems, samples, and acapellas. I'm sitting here with an old friend of mine, Jordan Hajileksu.
What's up, Rob? How you doing?
Good. First of all, let's address the seating, Jordan. It's a standing studio. You gave me a futon to sit on.
That's all we got, unfortunately.
That's fine, dude. That's fine. I just want to
acknowledge. We found this chair on the side of the road, actually, so yeah, that's pretty appropriate.
You kind of do what you got to do to get by.
Yeah, totally.
That's lesson one. We got a few more lessons coming up here from Jordan. He's going to run through one of his tracks. Jordan, why don't you tell us what track we're listening to right now?
Cool. This is our last single that we released, and it's called Prowl, featuring our friend Parker Joe from the Flavor Blue. And we released it a little bit over a year ago now, so I thought it'd be cool to kind of like decipher this one since it's like complete. This is actually before it's mastered, so it might sound a little different, but
cool, man. Let's take a listen to a bit of it and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so that was the verse section of the song, or like the first part where the beat is introduced.
Okay.
Okay. It's kind of like the drop and the verse.
Yeah. Sure. So tell us, this is using the vocals of the dude from the Flavor Blue.
Yeah.
Tell us how that all came together, how you got the vocals, and then like how you approach putting those vocals into an original track.
Matt's the other guy in Cuff Lynx.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is one half of the group Cuff Lynx.
Yeah.
Matt's the other half.
And we were working on a new song in 2000, I think early 2015 or late 2014. And it was just like a new song we wanted to put in our live set at the time. And then it kind of progressed, and eventually it was like, well, it needs vocals. And our friend Austin was with Parker at the time when we were texting about it, and he was just like, hey, you want to do them? So it worked out, and we had worked with Parker before. We had remixed a song off of from the Flavor Blue 3 years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago.
That was like one of the first bigger remixes you guys did, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, people liked it. It was,
the first official one.
Yeah, I mean, we had a few more before that, but that was that was definitely a fun one to do for sure.
Cool. So you got these vocals, you got them cleared, and then you kind of had that as like the first piece of the track.
Well, they didn't really have to be cleared. Parker had taken, he wrote the lyrics in a day and would just record them at his home studio and send them over, and then we would kind of go back and forth with it. And he was honestly like super easy to work with, and we get along really well, so it just worked out well. We just kind of back and forth the previews of the song.
And had you heard the original track that Parker had done before you jumped into this?
No, he had written it. To clarify, he had written it specifically for like a beat that we made. Or
okay.
Yeah.
So this wasn't pulled from another track.
Nope,
this is something he exclusively made.
You know, that's funny because like when we had been working on so many remixes of other stuff, that when we were working on this song, we kept on having to pinch ourselves like, oh, this isn't a remix. This is like our song. So
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But the thing is, like, I guess the style that we approach making music is almost like remixing our own music.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, talk about that a bit. What do you mean you're remixing your own music?
So a lot of times, this song's a little old. We've been doing this a lot more with recent stuff, but with this setup in here, we have a lot of hardware synthesizers and drum machines and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we usually will make a beat or just jam out and just hit record, or I'll sequence a bunch of different parts, and then I'll make it old school style, with MIDI and control voltage,
right,
and make a song and record it, and then I'll just pop out the looper and loop like a little section and put a filter on it and then generate something out of that. Or maybe we'll like scan through all of it and just clip out our favorite little part and throw the rest away.
So that's how this track came together, was a jam followed by...
This was a bass line initially that Matt was working on.
Let's take a listen to the bass line real quick.
Sure.
So was this one of the first things that you guys kind of ripped off of?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's take a listen.
And then there's also, you'll hear coming up, we use a one note reverberated out that like emphasizes the kind of pull right here.
Okay. So that's all a part of the bass, including that like 9 verb, it looks like.
Yeah, so to clarify, this is the weird part. So this bass originally is a kick drum sample.
Yeah.
And it's like, I believe Matt put a bunch of effects on it and then like flattened it, froze and flattened it.
Froze being that...
like he printed it to audio instead of it being, he would put like effects on.
Explain for some of the viewers what it means to freeze audio.
Sure, yeah. Basically, so you'll see up here, they are MIDI notes, right? And I can easily, click freeze track. I'm not going to do it right now because it's kind of a hassle, but it would convert this all into audio. Okay. And then you can play around with it a little more. Okay, the only downfall is you can't, there's no more changing things.
Right. And so that's a kind of a common theme with you guys, is you'll chop up your own samples or something that you've frozen or like something from a jam, and that is kind of how you're talking about remixing your own track.
Yeah, I think for us it's about identifying the key, like most captivating elements in the music and going with that and sticking with those sounds, as opposed to, I mean, like we can make different songs with different samples, but if you have a good sample, it's just like the inspiration is brewing because there's so many different ways you can take it if you have a captivating sample, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Definitely. I want to hit this point real quick. I've known you for a while, and I think since we first met, you were drilling deep into my brain how important it is to have analog instruments over digital. I mean, you can see in the background, that's definitely something you stayed true to. You have the craziest collection of synthesizers. Give us the short summary of why you are so insistent that this older analog way of doing things is actually the better way of doing things.
Okay, I'm gonna try and do this really quick.
Quickly, man. I mean, we don't have 6 hours.
Okay, here. Yeah, I think all producers, they start using their own digital audio workstation, DAW, whatever, and they'll use the pre-installed instruments and plugins and everything. Right. And then you start thinking, well, I have to use like my own samples or other samples than the samples they provide you with, so you can make better music, warmer music, punchier music, and eventually I would download samples online and get different samples, and I always noticed that the ones that I was using a lot were like sampled from the Jupiter 6 or the Juno 6 and the Jupiter 8 or whatever. It was just a lot of like old, and I had heard of Junos and Jupiters and stuff. I feel like we all kind of know about synthesizers, and from there on it just started.
It was like a drug. You're super into it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of like back and forth on Craigslist and finding stuff. But that being said, like for instance, I have a Juno 60 over here, and it's great. I love it. But there are times when I use a plug-in version of it instead.
Yeah, why is that?
Convenience, or maybe I like the sound better, or I can automate it more. But I've definitely done a few A/B tests, and they're pretty damn close. But the best way I can describe an analog synth compared to like a plug-in is, a plug-in is like zeros and ones, I guess, converted into sound. Right. And this thing is like voltage converted into sound, so it has like a lot of like variables and stuff. But like if I'm like ripping the filter on a digital synth, it's gonna make it sound, and that's about it. But if I do it on this thing, like I can like vibrate like wine glasses off the shelf. Right. Like that's the like gravity and the power that they have. So.
It's a very subtle but distinguishable difference in the sound. What about for kids that are just interested in jumping into analog? Like, where would you say a good place to start would be?
It depends. I guess it would depend on if they want like drums or synth sounds, but I mean, there's a lot of cheap products out there right now. I feel like it's the cheapest it's ever been to get into analog synths.
All right.
So Korg Volca, like these things over here, they're pretty cool. They're like $150. Or honestly, I look on, if you got to check out Craigslist in your local town and just see if you can find any cool deals.
Just do your research.
Yeah, do your research, get obsessed.
Cool, man. Let's keep listening to a bit more of the track and find something to pick apart.
Yeah, let's go. So we already looked at the bass, and this is the chord section, which is kind of like the chorus in a sense. It's a weird arrangement, but this is the chords right here, and it'll go back into this verse section, but more in like a drop format.
Okay. Cool. So one of the things I really dig about your tracks is there's like these little pieces that kind of sit in the background that you don't necessarily notice until you actually look at the project file, that have like, just add like some extra layer of something to it.
Totally. Cool. Thanks.
Tell us about what those pieces are. Maybe we can solo a few and just actually hear what you're trying to do.
There's a lot of pieces in here, but I group a lot of my stuff. And a lot of times I'll have a group called Effects, and maybe this is what you're referring to, and we can just solo that for a little bit and just kind of hear it.
Yeah, definitely. That was it.
And a lot of these are just recordings or samples that like that's a drill off my iPhone, I think.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of, so I guess I treat it like a Foley of music, if that makes sense. So.
Right.
Through my buddy Philco Raves, I was able to learn how to do Foley for like films interning in Los Angeles, and it's really similar to it's like using arrangement view, and you can do Foley in Ableton, but it's like using arrangement view to create a soundscape for a movie.
Yeah.
And then that type of editing waveforms just translates straight into music.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, a lot of people, I feel like, putting white noise or like a swooping sound in your music is really effective, and a lot of times we'll not do it. We'll like refrain from doing it until we want just like the bass and the keys and the drums to sound good, that they don't need it, and then like when you add it, it's gonna be better. So instead of sometimes just doing like static noise or whatever, I like to have a lot of different sound effects basically going on in the background.
Yeah, let's listen from like measure 61 over here and just hear what's going on.
And I think that's without the noise.
Okay. And so this obviously came after the beat, and you just had these different sounds, and how do you go about placing them in the mix?
A lot of these sounds are sounds that I'm fond of, I guess, through like the music I've listened to growing up. A lot of them are unintentional too, though. Like I have a drill sound, which is like, it's very mechanical, and I feel like it fits into this genre of music, or genre of song well. There's other sounds like this thing. I think this is it.
Yeah. That one caught my ear for sure.
That right there. I was actually at my day job doing like sound check in this room, and that was feedback created, like digital feedback created with a wireless mic, and it sounded, we were like waving like the microphone by the speaker, and it sounded like a lightsaber. Yeah, it's called a lightsaber, And then here it's just been resampled. So this is a great example of, I don't even know if I have the original sample anymore. Maybe like somewhere on my iPhone, but
Right.
or actually this might be it. So
Trippy.
It's actually not that loud. Wow.
yeah.
That is crazy, man. That is some deep
And then
behind
from,
the scenes.
yeah, from that into just that, you know. So I mean, today you can sample anything, and it's really incredible that I feel like it should be taken advantage of more.
Are you really particular about how you go about sampling things in terms of like the equipment that you use and
Not at all.
you're just
I
hitting
mean,
that shit on your
I would
iPhone?
love to, but a lot of
Yeah.
time it's like photography. Like sometimes you just have to be there and click the button at the right time.
Yeah, so this is from
So-
your iPhone.
The lightsaber is from this one we just looked at is from my
Yeah.
iPhone. The saw blade I think is from my iPhone. I don't even know what this is.
It's titled "Fuck You, We What?"
We could do better.
Okay.
I think that's because that's like one of the only Vengeance samples, but it's kind of
Oh,
non-existent.
okay. I get it. Get it. Let's
Yeah, a lot of-
let's
lot of
keep
cool
listening a bit. What I'm eventually curious to get to is the vocals. I know that oftentimes producers have a hard time getting the vocals to sit well in the mix. I don't know if you had any tricks or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah. Let's look at that. Okay, so here are the vocal. Let's go. Do you want to go to the chorus ones, or yeah? That's actually a good part to go through. So.
All right, let's do that.
I'll go find a new someone.
Actually, there are no vocals, I think, in that part. I haven't been listening to that song in a while. So, here's some vocals.
I want the girl, she want the world, she got to go. I'm on the prowl, she work it out, I got to
They
know.
seem
She
relatively
like the snow, she like the
unaffected.
cold,
It doesn't
I
seem like you have the
to
craziest amount of stuff on
She
it.
like
But
the
then
sound,
you
she
do have
come
this like
around.
fade in, fade out thing that you're doing.
Yeah, so these vocals were actually, I think, the original ones that we were sent. And we just really liked like the lo-fi fidelity of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm just doing some quick EQing, and there's like an LFO tool. There was a different like compressor on there, but I don't have it anymore, so it was bypassed. But a lot of times the effects I do will be flattened down into audio and then played alongside of it. So for example, you'll hear it really well here. And we did the same thing I was showing with the bass before,
Yeah.
where it has that like exaggerated like reverb at the end of it.
Okay, let's listen.
We just started and it's over. Won't settle down.
Yeah, let's pick that apart. That's really interesting what you did there. Tell us what each of the different reverbs are and what the purpose and kind of like how you put them together.
Okay, so let's just go to this track really quick. He says,
We just started
Right here.
and it's over. Won't settle down.
won't settle down. And then here, this is a fake echo initially. So it's kind of hard to show because I've flattened all this stuff and
Yeah.
froze it down. But this originally was just me, I think, going like this.
Okay.
Like something like that and fading it out and kind of echoing it my own way. So
Yeah.
if you listen to it, you can hear the rhythm changes halfway through.
That's the echo kicking in.
That's just, I chopped it that way for whatever
Oh,
reason. I just
okay.
wanted to make it a little less predictable
Yeah.
at the end of it.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
And then here, so what I'll do is I just take this sound right here, and then I just put it in its own track with reverb, and I turn the reverb all the way up.
Okay.
I turn it all the way up, yeah, but like something like a just very long decay, and then
Yeah.
all I do is flatten it. So it would sound exactly like this if I had pulled up the actual plugin, and of course it's been sidechained, so it's not like this. And then that way, I'll freeze it down and I can manually control when I want it to end or not, because it's just a lot faster to do that than to like automate it to turn off and have some tail end or something.
So you're sidechaining the this layer of reverb so that it's
Yeah.
got that like pulsing sound.
Yeah. So there's two of them. There's two layers. What's this right here?
That's another one. Is that the same reverb?
I think this is just a more consistent layer. So if we hear it in context, you'll hear kind of what it's going for. It's just kind of like the verse vocals end, so the reverberated like vocal sound almost like fills in that spot for where the vocal should be, but it's just kind of instrumental beat.
Yeah.
We can also go into the vocals here if you want. They're a little. Actually, this one still has it. So.
Hollow Room. This
Yeah.
looks like a pretty ghetto plugin here.
It's actually pretty. It's one of my favorite reverb plugins.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great part to pick apart. So here's the chorus vocals. It's actually they're like 20 megabytes or something, really teeny tiny. It's amazing. Like I have a hardware reverb over here, rack mount unit, and it like does the same thing, and it's 20 megabytes. You know.
Wow.
We've been waiting for too long, so today, no matter what they say, we've got to just keep holding on to each other, or we might fade away. It's your love that takes me up this high, like I've known you all my life. Your touch that keeps me up at night, fending off the morning light. And when tomorrow's days come, I set my feet back on the ground. Then like a bullet from a gun, I'll go find a new someone.
Okay. So.
I'll go find a new someone.
Here's like it's ducked down.
Right. So the tail of the reverb has that side chain on it.
Yeah. So this is a live channel that I guess never got frozen down, and it's just him saying like a few syllables.
Okay, and is it just you randomly chose those parts to chop up through like that really heavy reverb on there?
Not randomly. Like I said, I have this thing where I'll sift through a sample, and the parts I like I'll highlight them and then color them yellow because I call it gold.
Yeah.
And then usually those are what I mess around with, and then maybe I'll go back, but like it's just like a quick way to just get through it, you know.
There's the trick, dude. So anything that we see in your session that's colored yellow is also gold.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't. Yeah, sure.
All right, cool, man. Let's keep listening here. See if we can find some other pieces.
Sure. Actually, that's a problem. Go back and build again. So maybe we can just go like.
I'll go find a new someone.
Talk about your drums.
Let's talk about the drums.
Okay. So
let's talk about the drums, dude.
let's talk about the drums.
Drums are tight. I feel
Your
weird.
drums, I really dig that your drums have like that authentic kind of 80s. Do I say disco kind of sound to it?
Dude, I don't know. It's funny, like whenever people will like, I've had people say really nice words about our drums before, and it's so funny when people say like 80s, because I think I'm so like, I'm around so much of that music, I guess, that I don't view it as 80s. I just view it like, when you have synthesizers and drum machines, it tends to sound like that.
Yeah, so
you know?
So how would you categorize those drums? Because it's a pretty signature sound of your guys' music.
Heavy disco drums, I don't know.
Heavy disco. Much. When was the heavy disco era?
The heavy disco era is now.
Damn.
That's right now.
Wow.
It's coming.
So what are you listening for, like specifically in the bass or the kick drum, I mean, when you're choosing out those kicks? And do you have like a catalog of saved sounds that you are always referring to?
I could be way better at this, but I've been using different plugins to create kicks recently. But any kicks I like, I just make little side folders here, and I just do, like when I learned, a lot of people use Vengeance samples, and then if you go on their website, they'll say something like and I could be wrong, but it says something like, hand-selected samples, provided or packaged for you. And I was like, oh, they're just fucking selecting them, like, I can do that. So I try to start, and mine are probably going to sound terrible compared to like a Vengeance, but they're just some old drum machines and other stuff.
And let's take a look at your kick. Like that
Sure.
kick is fucking layered.
Yeah. Let's go over it. I mean, this is something that hasn't been flattened down. It's actually not that good sounding.
We're looking at how many different kick drums put together there.
Yeah, so let's hear it through the group because I think there's some effects on that. But yeah, so we have a few different samples going here.
What's that one for? Tell us what the thought process behind each one is.
I don't know. This is honestly a little embarrassing. This is like over a year ago before. I feel like our kicks sound way better, but I can show you some things that we still do.
Yeah, let's do that.
So a lot of times you'll hear kick samples with like hi-hats sampled into them. It kind of gives it like the higher end. You ever heard that before? Yeah, so sometimes I'll do that. You'll see there's like a very, very discreet sample there.
That's a pretty cool piece of advice though. So you kind of throw that like hi-hat on top of the kick just to give it that brush in the higher end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
too. And in other instruments too, like just layering different sounds. Like there's a little snare in here too. I don't want to show you guys exactly how I did that one actually, but
is that some top secret shit?
Yeah, it's like on the surface of top
Wow,
secret
guys,
shit.
we just hit an exclusive point with Cuff Lynx over here.
Some other things that I think everyone can do though that will make your drum sound way cooler is so basically I have almost every other drum sound sidechained to the kick drum. Usually like very slightly.
Yeah. Just letting that kick kind of pop through. And
yeah, maybe a little more on the hi-hats. So it's actually really high on the hi-hats. And that way, yeah, just like you said, it makes the kick cut through really well. Another thing I've been doing, I actually didn't do it in this song, but I've been doing recently, is I make another audio channel and record the kick, and then I measure how long the kick is. So say it's like 110 milliseconds. That's usually what I'll set the release to, or I'll at least start at that time, because I know the kick is that long.
Yeah.
And then the release of it will release it hopefully right. I'm actually pretty sure that's what this auto button does. But yeah, so like every single sound would be sidechained to the kick drum, and then those are all grouped into their own thing with like some multi-band compression and maybe like glue compression. But the idea is by keeping all the drum sounds into their own, like having them all in their own channels, for instance, and then putting them all in a group, and then putting like your compression, like there's a lot of the compressors on these drum sounds are just side chaining. It's not really, I'm not using them to compress it, but as soon as I put that all into the drum group and I put effects on it, I feel like it gives all the drum samples like a color, so it feels like it's its own instrument, rather than having every drum sound not grouped and just kind of individually going off in the whole mix.
Right.
That makes sense.
And so are you doing that, are you using the bus in that way for a lot of the effects? Where you instead of throwing effects on like individual channels, you mostly just refer them to the bus?
Yeah, a lot of them, but sometimes, you know, we'll have like an automated reverb that goes on one specific sound within the group. I tend to group everything as if it's like a band, so or like the best I can. It's kind of different song to song, but like I'll have like a drum, a bass, and an effects section. Or
Okay.
usually these days I put the noise in the effects.
So are those all the buses that you have?
All the buses in this project are so drums, bass, chords, like arpeggiators, lead sounds, effects, string sounds, noise, and vocals. And this is actually not really, I have little timer clicks that I use to sync it up to our live set.
Okay.
Great little tip, by the way. But
So, okay, you have that like at the intro of most tracks?
like pretty much any sample. We just started working on a new remix, and the first thing I'll do with the stems, as soon as I know their BPM, I'll set the session to like the native BPM.
Yeah.
And I put in like a square wave click sound on, like how they would sync up audio to films back in the day.
Right.
I just have that go on the beat, and then the song starts. And then what I do is I hit warp, and Ableton almost always will automatically, I'll print this sound to each stem individually.
Yeah, so it's
And
like
then
analyzing that.
Unwarped, and then everything's unwarped, right? And then I warp it, and it analyzes those clicks first, and it's really helpful if you're working with like like noise stems that can't be, it doesn't know how to warp them because there's no meter, there's no beat, whatever.
Okay.
Sorry, you kind of all sidetracked it there.
No, I mean that's it. Like the live set is a very big part of your guys' whole brand. So that's very interesting to know. Let's listen to one of the last sections here.
Yeah, this is honestly usually my favorite part about making a song is being able to just pick out my favorite elements and make the kind of ending beat if we have like a beat at the end of it.
Definitely.
Usually like the DJ friendly part, right?
Sure. Yeah, this is like you got the rhythm through and like you're just kind of playing with the groove a little bit.
It's kind of a cool part to like take out a bunch of layers and show like individually what's going on.
Yeah. Alright, the one thing I wanted to ask you about is like in the background it sounds like there's this really light cowbell type thing with a bunch of reverb on it.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah, you know what? That is, I think that's a rim shot. This thing?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, and this is actually the one part in our final mix where I feel like this sound right here, this conga, I feel like it's a little too hot, so I'd probably turn it down these days, but it is what it is.
I really liked it. It was something to pay attention to that also kind of sat in the background,
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of like 4 on the floor beats, so like we do try and get other sounds in there in between the beat that aren't going to make it just straight 4 on the floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, usually we like to just mess around with a lot of different like ping pong delays and stuff on what we call tiny drums. Like you'll hear here we have like little old like Roland, like the really early drum machines that just sound like Matt calls
really
them like
small.
They're like organ drum machines when you get like samba or something like that. It's funny how like those tiny sounds really seem to fit well with heavy music.
Cool, man. Thanks for joining us, man. This has been really cool.
Yeah, dude, thank you, man.
Rob from Dubseed.com. Got Jordan here from Cuff Lynx.
Yeah.
Cool.
Keep it real.
We'll see you guys soon. Alright, bro. Good shit.